Welcome to Night Shift. Jeff Sharon with you here. Eric Lopez alongside me here. We got this might be like our fast forward version, Eric, right? It's just you and me. We roll through things pretty quickly around here.
It's an old school edition.
Old school,
do this
that's
many
right.
a time. Right here, people don't see this, but I have like 5-6 pages of notes of softball as I'm getting prepared for the season. So I will try. This could be the last week where I don't talk much softball. So here we go. Although
Right.
we'll probably tease that at the end. We got big stuff going on with softball, but hey, good. Let's go. We got a lot going on.
Yeah, we'll talk softball a little bit later. Today is this is February 1st, 20. We're already in February of 2024. Unbelievable. Men's basketball yesterday coming up a little bit short against Baylor. Short-handed men's basketball. We'll talk about that and the Oklahoma game coming up. We also have women's basketball to talk about and football schedule. Eric, you and the boys broke it down when it got released, but we'll have a little bit more insight on it as we go forward here. But let's start with men's basketball. Of course, if you followed us yesterday, Nick Porcelli was there. Eric, you were there as well for UCF against number 18 Baylor, a game that UCF led for 30 minutes, but ended up coming up short, 77-69, with a thanks to a Baylor team that outscored UCF by 14 in the second half. But really, I think it was just one of those things where, we've talked about this many times with this team and what's their formula for winning, right? And one of those parts of the formula is that they have to remain healthy. Again, just like last time out, no CJ Walker, no Shamari Allen. We don't know when they're going to be back. And late in the game, that took its toll. Especially down low, because Ibrahima Diallo got into foul trouble. And then Omar Payne got into foul trouble as well. And it felt like everyone was starting to get a little bit tired out there. We saw guys like, Niels Mahovsky come in there. Tyler Hendricks played for about 4 minutes, just trying to spell guys like Darius Johnson, Jalen Sellers, and give them a little bit of rest. Darius had 23, 5 of 7 from three-point shooting, also 10 assists. To go with 7 rebounds, but it wasn't enough. And let's give credit to Baylor, too. This is the number 18 team in the country. In the net, they are, we know Houston's number 1, but in the net, they're 16th right now, ahead of Duke. Within the conference, they are behind Houston, BYU, Iowa State's 10th, and Kansas is 13th. This is the 5 teams in the net in the top 16 in the Big 12.
Yeah.
This is just one of those games where, I thought that UCF got the most that they could have out of what they had, and Baylor was just the better team all the way around.
Well, let's first start with that, because I've heard a lot of chatter after the game. Let's first start. Nobody has said, hey, Baylor's really good. There was a reason why Baylor's a top 5 offense in college basketball. That's a fact.
Mm-hmm. And they actually had a relatively bad shooting night, I thought, last night too, right?
48% by their standards. Yeah, that's
by their standards. But UCF's one of the top defenses in the Big 12.
Yeah, but Baylor had good offense. I don't think UCF played bad defense. Just Baylor had better offense. And sometimes offense beats defense, and they moved the ball really well, and they had good balance. Yes, I do agree that the officiating was definitely on the Baylor side. You look at the numbers. I think what you have for numbers in front of you. What was it? 20 of 27. Baylor was at the line. UCF.
They were 20 of 25. Baylor was at the line. 17 of 21 in the second half alone. UCF for the game was, UCF didn't really help themselves. 1 of 7 at the
correct. Line. That's the thing. They didn't help their part. They didn't do their part on that side. But and I said this to people. You're the rookie now in the Big 12. You're not going to get the benefit of the whistle when you're playing the teams like Baylor. I agree. They got a benefit on the play where the Baylor player, they called Darius Johnson for a foul that wasn't a foul, and a 3-point shot. You had a better view, I think, from courtside. I don't understand the Diallo play where it went from a regular foul to a flagrant. I don't know. Did you see something there that would warrant a flagrant?
They reviewed it, and from what I could determine, it was like he was Ibrahim was kind of reckless going toward the basket. Like, it was not like he wasn't. I think their determination was, we didn't get an exact explanation, But from what I saw when I watched it afterwards, he was not making a basketball move and going through that defender to get to the rebound. So that's why they upgraded that
I
to a
don't know.
flagrant shot.
It's a little tough, and I hate the fact that you got to. I mean, they didn't call it. They called it a regular foul on the play. Then they reviewed it, which is very subjective when you decide to review stuff. But nonetheless, that didn't play. It didn't help. All right, so I will agree with people that are complaining about the officiate. It didn't help. But you're right. I think BYU wear them. Baylor wear them down
Yeah.
with their pace of play. I thought UCF needed to play a half court game, and I think at times it got away from them a little bit. Baylor likes up tempo. You're right, and they miss Shamari Allen. Shamari Allen's a great ball defender. I think they miss him from a defensive side. I think they miss him from being an extra ball handler on an offensive side. And they miss CJ Walker's presence inside. And I think it's not a coincidence. Diallo has not been great since CJ Walker's been out. I thought they were a good compliment. So you add all of that. It's a tough chore. And like I said, Baylor's really good. This is a program that had won a national title in 2021. Scott Drew is one of the best head coaches in the sport. That's a good team. That's a team that can make a Sweet 16 run easily if they defend a little bit better. So I thought it was a high quality game. UCF just came up short, just not good enough. That just is what it is. Welcome to life in the Big 12.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. It's like, and the thing with the foul, and this is where I think it came from, especially in the second half. We looked a little tired, and when you're tired, you commit fouls. Especially in the second half. In the second half, especially. And by the way, Baylor got themselves into foul trouble in the second half too, a little bit. But and then UCF had to foul late, so they stacked up a lot of fouls toward the end. I just thought that when you're tired, you start committing fouls in the second half, and I think that's kind of what happened. I thought like we said, you throw as many bodies at them as humanly possible, and you've said that before. But we're short too, so that's that. And I think also the rebounding side. Even though UCF I thought performed pretty well on the boards. 29 to Baylor's 26. Like you said, without CJ Walker out there, that's another kind of hit on the boards. And Baylor, second chance, 15 second chance points, 30 points in the paint last night. And you can ask Johnny Dawkins about it. That's not going to do it. You give up 30 of their 77 points in the paint, when you have guys, when you have Diallo in paint out there, that tells me that, your backside help is missing.
No doubt. So. And that's, it's, well, again, when you have injuries, it's going to show itself in the Big 12 and obviously 2 straight losses without Shamari Allen and CJ Walker. Kind of similar in the second half of the Cincinnati game on Saturday on the road. I didn't see that game. I was hosting the softball banquet, but just kind of following it. It was a similar boat. UCF had a lead at halftime, double digits. Second half, it kind of faded a little bit. Diallo fouled out in 5 minutes in that game. Omar Payne was in foul trouble. That
was something.
So, it's a tough stretch. Now you got to host Oklahoma, who's also in the top 25, and they're coming off a big win at Kansas State where they blew them out. So it does not get easier. And the nervous thing about it is you look at the schedule, they host Oklahoma, and after that, you got a week off, and you're going on the road to Texas Tech and BYU. So it could snowball real easy quickly in the Big 12.
Two more top 30 net teams. So, and by the way, like, let's be honest with you here, like the Big 12 is beating itself up, which we thought was a possibility. You've got 7 teams. 8 of the top 9 in the conference standings are all ranked in the top 25, and the only one that isn't is Kansas State, and they're kind of just on the outside looking in. Houston, but look at the top. Everyone's 3 teams with 2 losses in conference: Houston, Iowa State, and Texas Tech. 4, 12, and 15. Kansas is 5 and 3 in the conference. And you look at UCF, we're hanging out there at 3 and 5. It's like it's so tantalizingly close, right? If
Yeah.
only you could get healthy and put together a few wins, all of a sudden it feels like you're in the thick of it, right?
Well, easier said than done on that, but it does show the depth of the
True.
league. It shows the balance of the league. It's why it's the number one league. Joe Lunardi has 9 teams in the field to
Good
get to the
Lord.
tournament, and that is significant. By the way, how many teams the Big 12 gets in, not only from a financial standpoint, but from a UCF standpoint. Because I read right, one of the new rules of the NIT this year is if you're one of the top 2 teams in a power conference that didn't make the NCAA, uh, you're getting an invite to the NIT.
Wait. So if you're in a power conference, let me
Yeah,
see if I understand this right. If you're in a power conference, okay, take out the teams that went to the NCAA.
right.
The next two in the standings
In
get
theory,
get invites
get
to
an
the
invite.
NIT. Is that right?
Yes,
Wow. So that would put UCF in the NIT right now.
yes,
Huh.
correct. Remember, they changed the rules in the NIT. They don't no longer do regular season champion automatic bids for the mid majors. A
See,
lot of
I don't
basket.
like that, but
I know a
anyway.
lot of people don't like it, but as a UCF fan, I like it. So I
Yeah,
don't care. I could
fair.
care like because it does. Because for UCF, and this is the reality, when you're in the Big 12 and UCF, it's going to be harder to make the tournament. Yes, you have more room for error, but you also have more top-notch teams, and so you want to have a better opportunity to make it postseason. So yeah, they are in position right now to be an NIT team. Time will tell. They got to win some games. The net rankings also will be a factor in all that, but we'll see what happens. But look, it just is what it is. It's hopefully they can protect their home court Saturday against Oklahoma. It's sold out. You announced that was cool to see
Yeah,
hear
that
that
was
announcement.
that just dropped. It was sold out. The Oklahoma game is
Um,
sold out for Saturday.
what do you make of that? Do you think that's a sellout? Obviously, people are interested. It's Big 12 basketball. That's a factor. Does that speak volumes about Oklahoma, the brand? Because I had this conversation with a mutual friend of ours, and we were
Mhm.
debating which game would draw bigger, Baylor or Oklahoma. And I said Oklahoma because they're a bigger college sports brand than Baylor, even though right now Baylor's a bigger college basketball brand than Oklahoma. Do you agree with?
Uh,
I mean, what do you sense that?
I don't think that's the primary factor. I think the primary factor is the Oklahoma game's at 4 o'clock on a Saturday.
Which I think has been a nice move by UCF. I'm assuming UCF has the pick on the times because all the home games on Saturdays
Mhm.
for conferences at 4 o'clock. I don't know if that's a joint thing with the Big 12 and UCF or just an exclusive UCF thing, but I do think that has helped. And I remember when the schedule came out. One of the things I said that I liked about the Big 12, and we had Michael Dono on the show, the consistency of the schedule.
Right.
The American, as much as I like the American, was all over the place from a scheduling, right?
Yeah.
Like some
Well, they
home
well they
games,
they had to fit the American in wherever they could.
right?
That's why. Yeah.
Whereas the Big 12, like every home game Saturday, it's 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
I do think that helps from a routine standpoint, right? Like it's easier to plan if you know that hey, every Big 12 home game on certain dates are at 4 o'clock
Right.
versus some weekends home games are at Saturday afternoon, some are Sunday afternoon, some are Saturday night, some are Sunday night. I think from a casual fan standpoint, it's a lot easier with this schedule this year to plan around UCF basketball games than it ever has before, certainly in the American era.
Well, certainly, I think on those weekend games because I mean, 4 o'clock on a Saturday, very reasonable time. You don't have to worry about taking the kids to bed or any of that kind of stuff. The students, they're not doing much on Saturday afternoons anyway. So we'll come down and watch the game. And then the fact that you are playing at Oklahoma, which is still a brand. Granted, they're not the brand in basketball that
They're
they
having a good
were.
year, though. They're having a good
Certainly,
year.
and certainly not the brand that they are in football, but they are having a good year. They're 21st in Ken Palm. Um, they top 20, top 30, I think we said in that.
Yep.
And they're leaving the conference, so there's a little bit of that, right?
Sure.
I think
Sure.
that's a factor. And it's a good matchup. They're a brand school. Now, here are the other Saturday home games. Ready? Cincinnati on the 17th. That should draw good. All right. Um, let's see what else. We have Texas Tech on the
They're
24th.
They're having a good
That's
year. Yeah.
another game that should draw. Saturday, March 2nd, Iowa State. That's a top 15 team. That should draw well. And then, well, that's the end of the home games
Top
on
15 net
Saturday.
ranking for those who are wondering. Top
Yeah,
15 net ranking.
top 15 net. They're 13th in Ken Palm as well. So,
Yeah.
So that tells you kind of, those are some really good
Well, yes,
slots and
yes.
really good matchups to have if you're if you're a UCF fan. Nothing against the midweek games, but I think we kind of benefit from. Let's see, we're at BYU.
Well, the Baylor crowd, by the way,
yeah,
the Baylor crowd was good. It was, I think they announced 8,000 something.
8,600, which
is
is really good.
So, if one of the things to narratives that we're following this year, obviously the on the field, on the court, how UCF does there, but from a business standpoint, I go back to volleyball. They had record-breaking attendance this year.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure they made money this year with the volleyball attendance skyrocket. It was the most attended season in UCF volleyball history. Playing the Big 12 schedule played a big factor in that. Texas, BYU draw monster attendance in volleyball. Football drew very well with the Big 12 games this year. They did very well. Baseball, it was just posted on social media this week. Season tickets, club seats sold out, basically. Wow. Unbelievable. In baseball, you never see it. Softball, I can tell you that softball season tickets are sold out. The Oklahoma softball series sold out. So, in fact, there's actually a secondary market for the Oklahoma UCF softball series that's I was told that's going for like $150, $200 to get in.
Nice.
So the point is
yeah.
There's a business side of this where UCF is benefiting automatically from going to the Big 12 because casual people are going to go see UCF play in the Big 12. And as much as we argued in the years past about, man, go see, support UCF, go there, people are always going to be attracted to who's the opponent, right? And that's kind of been shown this year with the Big 12. People are intrigued to see UCF play the Oklahomas of the world, and hopefully it continues.
Right, and there's two factors behind that, too. Number one, it's really attractive if you're a UCF fan to see UCF playing the likes of Oklahoma, BYU, West Virginia, Texas, those kinds of schools that we always felt like we could compete with on a level playing field. And now we actually are, right? So that's the first factor. Number two, and this is the part that gets underplayed a little bit, is the fans of those schools who live in Florida coming here to see their day. I mean, we've gotten, we've had, I saw quite a bit of green and gold in the stands at Kansas. There were a lot of Kansas fans at that game. I'm not going to lie. And BYU was the same thing, now I'm not saying that that's the factor, but that certainly
listen.
There's a lot more Oklahoma grads in Central Florida than there is Tulsa grads.
Well, you're right. Big 12 fans support all their sports, number one, from all the other fans. But you're right. Like, I'll give you a full disclosure. This Saturday, I'm going to the Oklahoma game. I'm going with my former producer. He was, you know him, Sean, used to work at our radio station that you and I used to work at.
Yeah. He's
a Sooner fan. He's going to his first UCF basketball game that he's ever gone to. We're going together to the game. This is what's drawing people. There are people. This is the first time I've had a lot of friends that normally go to Magic games that are checking out UCF basketball, not because the Magic are playing poorly. The Magic are in the playoffs as we speak, positions. That's not it. It's just the curiosity. Hey, UCF's playing Baylor. You're playing Kansas. You're playing these marquee programs that you see on television all the time when the Big 12 is on Big Monday, and they're on all over the place. You can't, if you've noticed, when you check your TVs during the week, and we commented on this when the Big 12 was going through the negotiations on TV, and what did we used to say, Jeff? That the basketball was as much of a part of the TV schedule as the football side.
Right.
And you're seeing that they're all over TV. You can't click on a college basketball day or night without seeing a Big 12 game, and rightfully so. It's an exciting brand. That's all. I think people are connected to that. And I also think if you're a fan and you're watching all these Big 12 games, you notice how the atmosphere is packed with great atmospheres all over the place. That has to kind of motivate you and almost draw you in as well, right? Like, you don't want to be the one school and one fan base that doesn't draw.
Right.
And I think we're seeing that as well.
Yeah. And I got to give a lot of credit to the students.
Sure.
man, they have shown up and shown out, and it's been fun to see. I haven't seen this many students for game, and not just the number of students, but the volume in the building
That's
is
the key.
really something.
But
So let
please,
me
guys,
ask.
no fake noises. By the way, I've never heard that in all my year. You made an announcement. Somebody was making a
I
fake noise or
I
something.
was at okay. So all right. Here's what happened. Somebody brought a vuvuzela into the arena. Remember the vuvuzela from the
Yeah, they
World
use
Cup
that
in
in
Brazil?
Orlando
Those
City.
big horns,
Yeah.
and yeah, I guess someone brought over. So it sounded like where it was located. First of all, they noticed it during Oklahoma's free throw, or not Oklahoma, Baylor. I'm sorry, Baylor's free throws, and it was coming from a part of the arena next to the band. They thought initially that it was someone in the band because it sounds like a trombone. But the band people know they're not supposed to play during a free throw. They know that, and nobody goes rogue in the band, right? Because they can get kicked out of the band for that. So we had to make an announcement being like, hey, like, you know, let's make and
No
this is by the
artificial noise.
no artificial noise, it musical instruments basically. uh Playing during Baylor free throws. And I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, there was some confusion. There was a little bit of confusion because it sounded like initially, like whenever we heard it, like it was coming from the band. And we were like, dude, the band they're not doing that. So it was somebody in 107. So whoever's in 107, please just don't bring the vuvuzela. Let's not get everybody in
This
trouble.
ain't Orlando City. All right? That's
I
it.
know, I know.
Well,
And so I personally, I don't know how you feel about this. I personally I don't like it when fans have artificial noisemakers because then the fans don't make the noise. You know what I mean? Like you ever, you go to a Magic game, and I think we used to do this with the Thunder Sticks, right?
yeah, sure.
Well,
I do remember that.
those inflatable thunder sticks. Well, I think maybe I'm wrong, but I have a theory that when you give out the thunder sticks, the fans bang the thunder sticks together, but they don't make noise themselves with their voices, and your voice is going to be louder because it's cacophonous, right? The thunder sticks all sound the same, so it's just this din, and it takes away from the noise. I think so. You know what? Just use your voice. It's
Well, just don't do anything that's going to get us a technical foul. That's
well
my
that
concern.
too.
That's my major concern. Do not give us a tech. We got enough challenges to deal with on the court.
Yeah,
On a
we need
5-on-5,
every
we're dealing
point
with
we can get.
officials. We do not need to be tech teed up. I mean, I
Right.
remember what wasn't it last year when UCF got a technical because the fans threw they made a basket and they threw like dust or something, or what was it? You remember what I'm talking about? Against US, it was a USF game where they threw a technical foul because they threw stuff in the air that went onto the court after they scored a
Uh,
basket.
I don't think we got a tech. I think we had a warning, but I
I
don't think
thought it
it
was
was.
a technical, but maybe it was a warning. Maybe my memory.
No,
But I
I
remember
think
there was something where they threw something in the air with some dust or whatever. Somebody in the audience who's listening will tell us. And
I forget. I
we
usually I
forgot.
remember that stuff. I don't know, but I don't know. Flu brain from last
Just
week.
don't give
Anyway,
us a technical.
right. So let me ask you this: we got 10
Yeah,
games to go in the
sure.
conference schedule. Only 2 of them are against teams that are that are outside of the Ken Palm top 35.
Yep.
West Virginia and they're both away games at West Virginia, at Oklahoma State. Now, the one good thing about the schedule right now is we have I guess what you could call a bye week coming up.
Probably needed it right now.
Yeah, because you're on that Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Wednesday thing. The game against Oklahoma is on Saturday the 3rd. No midweek game. And then the next game is Saturday the 10th at Texas Tech.
Oh.
Well, yeah, I know. But
That's why,
if you're banged up a little bit, just in the nick of time, right? To have no midweek.
Let's hope
recover
so.
A little bit.
So there's a couple things. I think this makes the Oklahoma game very urgent home game, because you look at after that, you're at Texas Tech and at BYU. That is 2 brutal places to play. BYU's feels 15,000. So, I mean, that's the thing.
Plus
This thing
the altitude. Don't forget the
the
altitude there.
altitude,
Yep.
this thing could snowball real quick. So my goal, and again, it goes into this week in the Big 12, is split. You could just split. That was my hope this week. Split. You win the Oklahoma game, you're fine. And then you try to split on the road the next week. The other concern is you hope they can get these guys healthy, but the other thing you kind of look for some things in the Big 12, and my concern is, does this team does it wear down as the year goes on with this gauntlet? We saw this with volleyball. Remember, volleyball got off to that great start. Oh, this is great. No big deal. And then they ran into that gauntlet in volleyball.
Well,
They got
that
smoked.
schedule was heavily backloaded, though.
Correct.
Whereas this schedule is both front loaded and backloaded. It's
right.
just generally loaded.
So my concern is, does this team get wear down? Because volleyball certainly got wore down by that schedule. Women's soccer had some injuries late in the season. I think they got wore down by the Big 12 schedule. Does this happen with men's basketball? Does this constant marquee game after game after game, does it take its toll on them and it just kind of breaks? And that goes for the Cincinnatis of the world as well. We don't know that. I think that's why you're right. I think it's a good time to have this bye week because they're going to play in Lubbock at Texas Tech. From what I understand, they're probably going to stay up there and go from Lubbock to Provo. They're not going to come back. That would be my guess. Kind of like what they did with Houston. Remember, they played at Texas, then stayed and bus to Houston. I think they're going to do the same thing with Texas Tech and BYU. I think
they can do that because that next game's on a Tuesday, not a
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
And give the conference credit. I think the conference kind of helped out. Maybe there was some negotiations there to make that happen, to make it as pleasant as possible for everybody. That's a tough trip, and then you come back home for Cincinnati, but then you go to West Virginia. West Virginia just knocked off Cincinnati at home. West Virginia is a different animal in Morgantown. Just ask the women's team. So my point is, and then you host Tech. I mean, it's a tough schedule here. So I think this Oklahoma game, there's some urgency here. It won't be easy. Oklahoma's another good offense. Porter Moser, the head coach there, they've had a good team. They've added some good transfers. They like to go up tempo as well. So it'll be a challenge for this Knights team to contain this Oklahoma team. But I think there's some urgency here with that gauntlet of a schedule. What does your boy Ken Pomeroy have projected for UCF right
now? He's got us beating West Virginia in a tight one, and then beating.
I hope you're right, Ken.
I hope he's right.
I hope you're right.
But look, I mean, he's got all these games. Like he projects the Oklahoma game to be close, right? Texas Tech maybe not so much because it's away. BYU not so much because it's away. Cincinnati close. West Virginia close but a win. Texas Tech at home close. Oklahoma State close. Iowa State at home close. Houston.
So he's got them for two more wins.
Houston is playing ball right now, man. No one can score on them.
Best defense in the country. I told people that. I knew that. I knew going into that UCF Houston game that UCF was going to struggle to score. I was correct. Certainly, I didn't expect record-breaking numbers, but yeah, if you're a Big 12 fan, by the way, Saturday. I mean, I'm a little bummed out about this. While UCF's playing Oklahoma, Houston's at Kansas. Monster game, top 10 showdown. There in the Big 12, that's going to be hyped up a lot. So we'll see how that plays out.
And Kansas is I feel like they're a little.
So I'm looking at this
right now too.
So Pomeroy's got them for only 2 more wins the rest of the way, right? Is that correct? What I see there?
Yes. Now that can change, but
sure.
Right now we have basically those are the only 2 games that he has us with a better than 50% chance of winning.
Oof.
So now take that as you will. He thought we would have only 3 wins the whole season in the Big 12. We have 3 wins now. So
he's got them going for 5 wins, which is what I thought going before the season. If they can get to 6 or 7, I think it'd be a huge success. And if they get to 6 or 7, I think they're a lock for a postseason NIT. NCAA, you probably got to get to 8 Big 12 wins. I'm talking about without the conference tournament. Obviously, if you're 500, you're pretty much a lock. That's been the history of it. But
yeah,
1 game at a time. I said this, and it's cliche, and I hate it. But in this league, in this sport, it is true. It is 1 game at a time because every game is its own deal. I mean, they asked Scott Drew about it in the post game last night about it, Wednesday night, and every game it's its own deal. It's like every game, it's like a
Mhm.
postseason game, if you will. It's a marquee deal. So.
Which is such a change from the American too. I think that's the part that everyone forgets is like, in the American, it was like, okay, well, we got to beat East Carolina, and then we look at, the Houston game after that or whatever. It's like, no, 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 man. Your entire focus needs to be against Oklahoma in this next one.
And by the way, it's not
You
going
know,
to get easier. It's going to get harder
nah.
next year when they go to 20 games in Arizona,
And Arizona,
Utah, Colorado,
yep,
Arizona State, all coming. By the way, all those teams I mentioned, depending where you read, are projected to make the tournament this year.
yep, yeah. It's an upgrade.
It's
From
actually going to get stronger. Yes, you lose
yeah.
Texas and Oklahoma, the brands, but Arizona is a bigger brand in basketball than Texas and Oklahoma.
Mhm.
Bobby Hurley's done a great job at Arizona State. Colorado and Utah this year are having good years. They're on the rise there. So, this league is only going to get even super stronger. It's going to be even super sized. Good Lord. It's going to go up to 20 games for conference. So it is not going to get easier for UCF, and there's a lot of work to do on and off the court. I was very pleased to hear, Terry Mohadra did a video on UCF talking about all the shortcomings that UCF has had from a resource standpoint in basketball, and so they're working on addressing all that. So
Yeah,
that's a good
and
thing.
that asked the AD video. That was really good. That he
Well,
did before.
and he
Really good.
understands that. Look, you will not compete in the Big 12 with the current resources that you've had the last decade or so. Like you could say this team should do better. You're not going to compete at this level. It's not even the UCF's near the bottom of the Big 12 in basketball. These programs are spending tons of millions of dollars. The Big 12 spent the most money on NIL money and basketball in the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. So it's true. By the way, speaking of things not getting any easier, let's move over to the women's side.
Ooh.
They went up to They are still scuffling from these injuries, man. It is brutal. They're at 10-9 right now. After getting that first win over Houston in the space game in OT, 92-87, they go up to Morgantown. I thought they looked a little tired. West Virginia is also really good. They're top 25 in the polls, and 84-43 was the final on Tuesday in Morgantown. UCF comes back home for the next two, Iowa State and Cincinnati. But I don't know, Eric. I feel like you just got to throw this one out. You were down 18-4 after the first quarter. Caitlin Peterson had a cold night, relatively speaking, by her standards, 4 of 12. Maya Burns had a rough night out there. Morgan Robinson had a rough night. Kala Ngodu, who was so good in that Houston game, she was fantastic in that game, came out 1 of 6. And I mean, West Virginia is a contender, man. I think that they're pretty
They're
good.
top 25 team. They're going to be one of the
22nd in the net. They're 18-2 on the year too. I mean,
they're projected as one of 6 Big 12 teams to make the tournament, according to Charlie Cream on ESPN.
The women's team for West Virginia is doing what we thought the men's team would do under Bob Huggins, and then Bob Huggins got fired.
And the West Virginia women's team has a lot of Bob Huggins type of style in that they press a lot. So I watched I was there for the first meeting in Orlando when West Virginia won earlier. They press a ton. They're one of the nation's best in forcing turnovers. Now, the problem that UCF's going to have is teams see them a second time, like West Virginia did, they make adjustments, and they're going to focus on Caitlin Peterson, and other players are going to have to step up, and that could be a challenge for them. Here's the good news for them. They got their first win against Houston. That was the one to circle. They needed to win that game realistically. Once they lost the TCU game, they did. They found a way to win that in overtime. So at least they got that off their deal. They got a challenge with Iowa State. The next, I think, game where it's winnable is Cincinnati. They lost at the buzzer, basically, the first meeting in Ohio. To me, if you can win that, pick your spots and try to get experience. I think that's where the women's team's at the rest of the way, because it ain't going to – I mean, you mentioned Texas Tech. That's a tough trip. Wow, that's a double – are they doing a doubleheader in Lubbock on the 10th there with the men and the women?
Let me see here. I should know this.
I think that's what they're doing.
I believe
the women is
– I'm looking at the men's schedule right now. Was it the February 10th?
February 10th.
Yeah. Men are at 4.
And the women are at 8.
Okay.
So they're doing a doubleheader like we've been doing. We're doing this Saturday. So
I like that, by the way. I wish we did more of that.
Do you like it? And somebody asked me this. Bryson asked me this, actually. Do you like the women going first, then the men? or do you think it should be the men first and the women second?
I like the women going first and then the men because okay, so usually when we do that, I feel like the crowd arrives for the second half of the women's game
Sure.
and then they're amped up for the men, and that's when you need the crowd the most, right? Is in that second half. I mean, let's concede that you're going to get more fans for the men's game than the women's game, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
But if we're going to get them, get them for the second
You've
half of the
got to.
women's game and start,
I
you
agree.
know,
Yeah, I
get
agree.
where you get that momentum. It gets loud. It gets rowdy. It's that's what I like because everyone wants to be there for the start of the men's game.
I agree. In fact, I'm evidence of that because when UCF played BYU in the men's side, I went to the second half of the West Virginia women's game just to beat traffic. Because remember, the Hula Bowl was going on that day, so I
Right?
decided to
Busy day.
go there with our buddy Kevin Reese, hang out with him, and we watched this. We got there at halftime of the West Virginia game, watched the second half of the women's game, and obviously stayed for the men's game. I think if you flipped it, at least in this market, we're not going to talk about the other markets. I can't speak for Lubbock, but I don't think people would stick around for the women's game after a men's game. To your point, I just don't see it.
Well, in
unless
Lubbock, there's
unless
really not much else to do. Let's be fair.
fair, but I mean, unless the women's was playing like a marquee opponent or something like that, I
Right.
don't see that 70. So I do agree with that premise. I do like the 4 hour block. I know some people are like, because you can't do the 2 hour block because if a game runs long, then everything's behind schedule.
Exactly.
There's
Yeah.
TV things you have to also account for. So that's why they're doing the 4 hour window for those that are wondering.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Because you can't have any overlap. Like we had some games where there were double headers in the American where like the women's game went long and then the men's game started about 15, 20 minutes late. And the Big 12 and their TV partners do not like that. So but yeah, a doubleheader in Texas Tech on the 10th. Obviously the Cincinnati game coming up on the 7th.
Yeah, I think Cincinnati's the winnable game there. Iowa State's tough.
Yep.
Iowa State's a
Iowa
tournament team.
State's
That would be
and
an
by the
upset.
way, they're not even ranked. And then you got a game at Kansas
Oh.
State on the 17th.
Oh, well, no,
Who's
no.
number two in the country. Ugh.
Well, look at that stretch. You're at Kansas State, at
Yep.
Oklahoma State,
Ugh.
host Texas. Holy bleep.
Home for Kansas. And then you're at Houston to finish out the season. That's hey, but you know what? This is one of those things where it's like just like the men's, we signed up for this, right?
Sure.
So
yeah.
Let's roll the ball out there and see
what
happens.
A lot of work to do there. Yeah,
yep.
A lot of work to do.
A lot of work to do. So right now they're 10-9. We talked about the men being, having injury problems. The women are just they're not TCU level decimated.
Yeah, we're not having volleyball players on the court yet.
Yeah, or pulling off state champions from somewhere else, but their front court is really hurting. Shola Kott is basically on a minutes limitation. Jayla Kelly is hurt and is not playing very much. And I thought that Jayla was really a key early in the season. Just her sheer size and athleticism down low was a real. Presented a lot of problems. Taylor Gibson played only 10 minutes the other night. Yeah, I mean, now I don't know how much of a difference it would have made against West Virginia in Morgantown, but it would make a difference in a lot of these other close games that they've had. But if they do get healthy, we'll see. And this is the part that I keep, kind of mentioning. I mentioned this in the column that I had about football and recruiting and how, competition takes a minute, to get from this level. This is the biggest jump that UCF has had. And I wrote on blackandgoldbanneret.com that it takes a full recruiting cycle to get up to speed. And the fact that, right now the men's team is competing at the level that they're competing both shows A, how good they've done, how good a job Johnny Dawkins has done in the portal, but also B, how much more time it takes, right? Because
I would argue,
you have to have everything go right in order to. You have to have everything go right in order to really compete. And the hard part is just the attrition from injuries, the depth. It's the same argument that people made about football that night in, night out grind takes a toll.
Well, you multiply it. Yeah, you multiply it all of it
Yeah.
because, like I said, Big 12 basketball, it's like people in Kansas are not happy right now with the way the season's going. Like they take it very seriously. A lot of these basketball schools do. And that's the challenge. You're going up against people that have way more resources in basketball than you do, more history than you do.
Yeah.
Like I told somebody, this is the thing. People got to remember about both the men and the women basketball programs here, because for some reason people think that we should be at a certain level that we're not. In the Division One era, both the men and the women have one NCAA tournament win. One. That's it.
Mhm.
It's not like we have this luxury of, football has history and tradition of winning, at least in the Division One era, to work with, not to mention the background of the state of Florida. It's a great talent pool in football, which is, I think, will help speed up the process as far as catching up to whatever deficit is perceived in the Big 12. Basketball, it's a lot longer mileage from that standpoint. So it's for both. I think, we talk so much about the men, but the women, I think, just have as much as a big of a challenge. Like they didn't win an NCAA tournament game until a couple years ago.
Right.
And it took Abe and a great job that she did just to get him to that point. So I think these two sports are going to have a big challenge. And again, it is going to get harder, not easier,
Right.
in basketball, because Arizona is a powerhouse basketball program. They've got Utah's on the rise. You got Arizona State and Colorado. It's going to be hard to just stay out of last place. It is going to be hard. That is not a cliche. And
Yeah.
I don't know if people understand that, what's coming as far as the basketball side of things. I think I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying there aren't things that could be better, but I think some people just have to get a reality check on where the expectations are for basketball versus other sports. I mean, it is the two, to me, in my opinion, the strongest sport Big 12 has is men's basketball and softball are gauntlets. And the men's basketball by far is the super conference. Certainly the SEC is making ground. Big East is very good in basketball. But from a depth standpoint, especially next year, holy macro.
Yep.
It's better than most conferences in the NBA. Most divisions. I would take it over the Southeast Division.
I don't know about that.
I'd take this over I don't think the Wizards and the Hornets would do well in the Big 12. All right? I'll tell you that. I think but it is what it is.
Yeah, you know how I feel about pro college comparisons. But anyway, women coming up with their schedule. Once again, Iowa State, and that game is at home noon on the 3rd, and just trying to get some points on the board, right? And Wednesday the 7th against Cincinnati at home. Those two games at home. All right. Let's move over. Let's move over to football real quick, because we talked about you guys had the night shift live on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Where we broke down the schedule. Now that we've had a moment to digest the football schedule a little bit, I'm loving what I'm seeing from this schedule. I mean, not just obviously the quality of teams, which speaks for itself, but here's what I like. All right. We got 2 bye weeks, one of which is before we play Colorado. All right. The other bye week is in the middle of November, after the trip to Arizona State, before the trip to West Virginia. So you don't quite have 2 back-to-back roadies. You have road game, not a week off, road game. This schedule, and I broke this down, works out very favorably for UCF. The combined overall record of their FBS opponents, Eric, is below 500, both for the teams they're playing on the road and the teams they're playing at home. The only team that won 10 games last season that's on the schedule this season is Arizona, And Arizona just lost their head coach, Jed Fish.
Lost Jed Fish. They've probably lost some depth because they've had some players go to the
Right.
portal as a result of that. Yeah.
So I think this schedule works out very, very nicely. Now, there are going to be some real tests. I think the TCU game on the 14th, that Big 12 opener, I think that's going to be a bit of a test to start out. I like the fact that we have Colorado at home. If we had to go to Boulder, I wouldn't like that quite as much. There's going to be a lot of attention paid to that game.
Well, we knew they were Colorado
back.
we knew Colorado. The only thing, if you want from a UCF standpoint, you probably wish you would play them later in the year because as you saw last year with Dion, and I think it'll be the same case this year, I could see them getting off to a good start, but as the season goes on, their lack of depth will catch up with them and they'll fade. And I would have probably rather play them in November. However,
you could say that about all teams, though.
Yeah, but Colorado especially, because I do question whether Dion knows how to build depth. Can he build depth there? Like, yeah, Shakur Sanders is great. The skill position will be fine, but they have no depth in the line of scrimmage whatsoever in the trenches. Yeah. And that's where you tend to wear down the most.
It's going to be hot for that game too, though. That's the one thing that does play to our
we assume. I mean, we don't know what time that game. I mean, I have a feeling that could be a night game.
It could be a night game.
Because I think that's a TV draw. But with Colorado. But yeah, I agree. Colorado at home is good.
The Florida game on Saturday, October 5th, I think Florida's coming off of a bye that day.
I thought they were at Mississippi State the week before, but you might be right on that.
I'll have to. I want to look that up.
You might be right on the bye situation, which would obviously help Florida. By the way, how wired from a UCF standpoint? You go from Deion Sanders, Colorado, right to Florida.
Woo! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! And by the way, there's going to be, I think about 25, 30,000 UCF fans are going to try and get to Gainesville for this game.
Yeah, you're right. Florida's got a bye.
Yeah,
Florida's got a bye. Big
now, here's the thing, though, Eric, and this is what I was thinking. And Mark Daniels talked about this the other day. I thought it was really interesting. Billy Napier, that's going to be that could be a very huge game for him because you look at Florida's schedule. They're home from Miami. They lose that game. Obviously, I think Miami's going to be favored.
Well, I don't know about that's a pick'em. That's probably a pick'em.
You think it's a pick'em? All right. I think Miami's got the upper hand there. I know it's in Gainesville, but all right. Samford win. They have 2 conference games before this. Home for Texas A&M. That could be a toss-up. I know Jimbo's not there anymore.
Mike Elko's the new head coach there. Yeah.
Yep, Mike Elko's there. Mississippi State, not the easiest game to play up there in Starkville. Yeah. If Florida comes into this game, if Florida loses the Miami game in one of those 2 conference games, and they come into UCF that bye week 2-2, that's going to be. Mark made this point too on his show. That's going to be a really uncomfortable bye week in Gainesville.
For sure. Absolutely. I mean,
and then they got us. And then if we win that game in Gainesville, oh my gosh, it's going to be.
You may not make it to Tennessee. Well, that's the problem. There's pressure for him. Look at that schedule. I mean, they at Tennessee. Look at further down. Look at from Georgia on what Florida has.
Yeah.
They play Georgia in Jacksonville. Then they go to Texas. No bye week. Go to Texas.
Right.
Post LSU. Post Ole Miss at FSU. Where's the wins there? I don't see a win in that stretch. I think this is Billy Napier's last year.
Maybe Texas if they're lucky.
I don't think so. No way. Not in Texas.
I think they would have obviously that at Texas is different than and they are at Texas.
It's a tough stretch. It's a tough slate. And you're right.
I don't know what you're going to get from LSU either with Brian Kelly with the quarterback.
Well, at least that's at home, but he may not make it that far. To your point, Billy, it's going to be uncomfortable. You're right. There's that UCF Florida game is going to be unique because there's going to be pressure on both sides. There's pressure on Florida for the reasons you just pointed out. Like he could lose his job if he loses that game. And I think there's pressure with UCF because I think fans will expect to really want to win that game. It's not like,
well, of course they're going to want to win the game, but let's face it, there's a lot more pressure on Florida at home against
there's high stakes for both.
Perceive as a little brother than there is for UCF.
There's high stakes for both, especially if UCF's, let's say, is undefeated going into that Florida game, which there's a good possibility. They'll probably be ranked going into that Florida game. You beat Florida the last time you played. This is not like 1999 or 2006 when you went there hoping to keep it close. Put it to that way. The mindset's going to be different because you have got a quarterback who just beat Florida there last year, who knows how to beat Florida. So that thing is going to be off the charts for that week. It's going to be tremendous.
Let me ask you
content.
this: what do you think the TV situation is going to be for that game?
Florida? Yeah, I get it, but it depends. How does Florida get? What kind of start does Florida get off to?
Let's say Florida starts 3-1.
That could be an ESPN primetime game.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I can guarantee you this: it will not be on any of the Fox channels. Thankfully, if Florida and UCF get off to a good start, I mean, I don't know the rest of the schedule that day, but that's definitely could be an ESPN primetime game. If Florida gets off to a bad start, like you just alluded to earlier,
if they lose to Miami, lose to Mississippi
State,
that's
SEC Network. That's SEC Network.
SEC Network. Wow.
They'll hide them on SEC Network, so because now it could still be a night game, but it'll be SEC Network if they get off to a bad start.
What do you think are going to be the prime UCF games that are going to be on the mothership, maybe on ABC out of UCF schedule? Possibly Colorado, you mentioned. Possibly.
Well, remember Fox. You got to throw Fox into this.
Oh, Fox. I forget. I mentioned. I'm sorry. I didn't mention Fox. But
with Deion Sanders factor, will get you a good TV draw, whether it's at ESPN, whether it's ABC or Fox. Assuming both UCF and Colorado get off to good starts, I could see that being a marquee night game. I could see Fox picking that up. That. Remember what I told you, that 3:30, 4 o'clock slot that Fox is going to highlight the Big 12? I could see Colorado UCF being a Fox game. By the way, could be a sneaky big noon kickoff show on location from Orlando. Early. Could be a big noon. If Big Noon wants to come to Orlando or game day, we'll just throw game day. I don't know the full slate that day. But Colorado UCF, I would not be surprised if Big Noon kickoff or a game day goes there if both teams get off to a good start.
Is this Deion's first game in the state of Florida as a coach?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's why this is big. And now I will say this. I said that could be a primetime game. Again, without knowing what the rest of the schedule is that day, that also could be, like I said, 3:30 on Fox. Could be a Big Noon kick on Fox, depending on, I don't know what the Big Ten slate looks like that day. So maybe Big Ten might have the noon slot on the 28th of September. We'll know more in the summer once the schedules are all kind of out there. But that's a big TV one. I think Florida, if Florida gets off to a good start, is a good TV one. I think Utah, Black Friday. Jeff, we finally get to play a quality opponent for the first time ever on Black Friday. Did you believe that? We got an exciting game to get excited about finally on Black Friday.
Oh, man. Eric.
But Utah, Utah is a contender for the big. That, depending on the ramifications for that game, if you believe that UCF will have a great year, which I do, and Utah will have a great year, which I think they will, that could have major Big 12 title implications. That could be an ABC or Fox game on Black Friday, easily.
Okay.
So that's another one from a TV slot.
That's fantastic. So I wanted to, well, I'll put out another sneaky game that could get some national attention is the Arizona game on the 2nd. If Arizona looks like they're weathering the Jedfish departure, and if they're in a good spot, that's first of all, that's the space game. I like that game, by the way. It's a space game for Arizona. At home, and I'm going to look at November's. By the way, across from the UCF game on the Colorado, across from the Colorado UCF game is going to be Georgia and Alabama.
That's a primetime ABC.
That'll be and they've already locked that down.
They've already locked it in. What are some of the is there Big 10 or other Big 10 or Big 12 games that day? What are the other notables there?
I haven't seen any others. Now, remember the schedule's not fully baked yet. Like I don't even think they've added the.
Yeah, they should have added some. Maybe they haven't. I know the Big 10 announced their schedule.
Yeah. UCF Iowa State. Okay, that's the Iowa State game. What week is that? Okay, that's 2
October,
weeks.
September 28th. But anyway, So Arizona, to your point, while you look it up,
Yep.
Arizona's obviously would have been the preseason. I think a lot of trendy picks to win the Big 12. Obviously, the question is the new coaching change with Brennan coming over from San Jose State. Reminds me a little bit of UCF in 2018 when Josh Heupel came in. You had this core of this group back from a successful team, but people wonder what's it going to be like with the coaching change. By the way, did you see the story with the Arizona president interview with Stuart Mendel, where he admitted he miscalculated? It turns out they didn't lose as much money as they first said. They said they originally lost like over nearly 400 million. Turns out they only lost 140 million. Oops. Can you get your math right?
Only 140 million.
Yeah. Can you get your math right over there in Arizona?
Give me 140 million to lose. I'll lose.
Yeah, the president said last fall they had a $240 million budget miscalculation. Now he says it's more of a $140 million miscalculation. That it was he miscalculated the amount of the miscalculation. There you go.
You know what they say, Eric, a few hundred million here, a few hundred million there. Pretty soon you're talking some real money. This is the week of the Arizona game for UCF. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
We've got Oregon at Michigan.
Well, that's a marquee game. Yeah.
Ohio State at Penn State.
Those are probably going to be Fox CBS / marquee games. Yeah.
USC at Washington, which is now a Big 10.
That's right.
Weird.
What weekend is this?
This is the November 2nd.
Yeah,
so this is the weekend that UCF plays Arizona.
Yeah, UCF Arizona. Boy, that could be a night game. That could be, that's not going to get.
Well, you got Florida, Georgia that weekend.
Yeah, you're not going to get a great slot for that game, even if both teams are. You might get a night game out of that, maybe FS1, ESPN.
Kentucky,
Tennessee.
Depending on.
What about the Colorado weekend? What about the Colorado weekend? That might be the one that I'm more curious about.
That's September 28th, right? Okay, let me pull this up here. Hang on, this is riveting radio. I know. Little bit more room to play with. So we got Louisville at Notre Dame.
That's an NBC game.
Yep. Oregon at UCLA.
Big 10 game.
Yep. It's still weird to me. Wisconsin at USC.
Late game. Yeah, late game.
Georgia at Alabama, obviously you mentioned. Mississippi State at Texas.
That'll be ABC or SC. ESPN,
oh, here we go. Oklahoma at Auburn.
SEC, yeah. I can tell you, I'm looking at
Ohio
this.
State, Michigan State. I don't know what we're going to get from it. Here's another interesting game here. Florida State at SMU.
Good God. Jesus, that's brutal. So Michigan and Ohio State, particularly, are they playing that weekend at all? Or anybody of note? Michigan's hosting Minnesota. That's a garbage game.
Yeah.
That's a garbage. Where's Ohio State playing?
Michigan State. At Sparty.
It wouldn't shock me. I'm going to go bold here. Would not shock me if Colorado gets off to a good start. Colorado UCF, big noon kickoff on Fox. Noon with Gus and Joe Klatt at the bounce house.
At the bounce house, huh?
Big noon kickoff show live outside with Rob Stone, Urban Meyer and company. Could be in play. That sounds like a June, July article I'm going to have to write. But yes, that could be in play.
Would you take that game if you were in charge of Fox Sports? Would you take that? You would take that game over Ohio State at Michigan State in East Lansing?
Yes, because there's going to be other marquee Ohio State games you're going to pick later in the year. You can't pick them every week. Remember the Big Ten deal. You have Fox, CBS, NBC. So maybe you give that Ohio State game to NBC or CBS if you're Fox. I could be wrong. They may end up picking it, but I know they like Deion Sanders. Remember last year they went like back-to-back weeks with Colorado games. So Deion is a draw. Whether you like him or not, whether you think he'll be successful or not, that's irrelevant. He's a draw. And
they did get some help from the fact that he beat TCU in the opener, and TCU is the defending national runner-up. Turns out TCU wasn't as good as everyone thought.
Right.
Turns out Colorado wasn't as good as everyone thought.
Right, but he's a draw, and that's his first game in the state of Florida. And I would argue he will be the biggest, most important football figure to be in the bounce house ever. Like he's the greatest cornerback arguably in the NFL history. He's the greatest cornerback arguably in college football history. Like the only other person that would come close is Steve Spurrier when he coached South Carolina in the bounce house in 2013. Like, there's not a bigger.
Lest we forget our erstwhile Orlando Apollos.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, that too. Whatever. Whatever. But my point is, he's the most important, the most famous, most important, biggest football person to be in the bounce house as a coach, participating as a coach or a player. I would make that argument.
All right. Well, we haven't had anyone like Bo Jackson or Tom
Right.
Brady come here.
There's no UCF player that's at his level. Sorry, with all due respect to all my friends there, there's no UCF football player or coach that comes near his level. The only one I can think of from an opponent standpoint is is Steve Spurrier.
Yeah, I mean, you may be right, but like, whatever, that doesn't give you a championship belt. I mean,
no, but it's a mark. But what I'm saying is,
if they come into the game 1-2, you know.
But I think that will bring some like, I think that'll be a sellout. I think that's your hottest.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a sellout, yeah. No doubt. All right,
Kyle Nash. I know you're with your family. You're listening. I will help you. I will sacrifice for the good of the banner of the banneret. While you're covering the UCF postgame, I will go ahead and take Deion Sanders' postgame just for you, just for the second. I hope you appreciate me, Kyle.
By the way, a quick little wrap on this on the schedule.
Yeah.
Sneaky tough stretch. Interestingly enough, by the way, UCF's 2 bye weeks are on excuse me, the second bye week is in November between Arizona State and West Virginia. And that's a sneaky tough stretch.
Well, but I'll say this.
Because Arizona State Sun Devil Stadium, you go out there, it's hot, it's Phoenix.
But I would rather, I think that's a win, though. I would rather have the Arizona State road game in November because it eliminated. Otherwise, you might have had Iowa State and West Virginia in November. You knew you were going to get probably one of those 2 games, Iowa State or West Virginia, in November. At least you don't get both of them in November. Yeah. So West Virginia, the fact that,
West Virginia, Morgantown in late November is going to be tough.
At least Arizona State, the weather will be good. November, you could get a golf course out there in Scottsdale. I mean, it's not bad.
Yeah, people are going to go play. By the way, you know, at Sun Devil Stadium, you know, they've actually out in Tempe, where Arizona State plays, they have decreased the capacity by 20,000.
Sure.
They did it in 2018, like, because you and I are old enough to remember when the Cardinals played there.
Yes.
And that was a 73,000 seat football stadium. It was big enough to host the, an NFL team, even though it was a college stadium. So then the Cardinals moved to Glendale and built the dome out there. And in 2018, they decided to lop off basically 20,000 seats at Sun Devil Stadium. It now seats 53,600. I remember when the AAF played there, the Arizona, what do they call it? The Arizona, they're named after firemen out there. I forget what it was. Anyway, the Arizona Hotshots. And they actually got pretty good attendance at those games. But I was like, well, what is it really? But I noticed, like, when I looked at the aerial shots, that the stadium is decreased in size by 20,000 seats. When do you ever see that in college football, Eric? Like a college football program decreasing the number of seats by that much. You know, UCF, I mean, we had 45,000, and then we kind of dropped down to like 44 and change.
Well,
but from 73 to 53?
Yeah, but that's I think that's going to become the norm. I know Florida State is lowering some of their seat capacity, partly because they're adding more luxury suites. See, and that's the magic trick, right? Like, we've seen this with UCF. They've lowered the seat capacity because they're adding those, the cabanas. So I think that's a factor. And let's be real, Arizona State football is probably not the most popular thing going on over there in Tempe.
Well, okay, you made a point about Doak Campbell.
Yeah.
What is its current attendance right now? I can't even. They don't do it very good. Okay, 79,560, but it's still, the record there's 84,000.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
but they brought. I mean, the difference between 84,000 to 79,000, and they probably oversold that game, whenever that was. is much more than 73 or 74 that they had in Sun Devil Stadium to
For sure.
53. That's,
Sure.
that's pretty wild to me. But Tempe and Phoenix, great place to be, especially when the weather's nice. It starts
In
getting nice in
November, I'm
November.
telling you, that's a win. I know, and it's only
Might
and
be
it's
windy down there too. That's the other thing.
could be, and it's the
So
only West Coast trip you got to make this year. Which I don't know how often that you're going to be able to say that. That's the other thing I like about. So I think take advantage of this schedule if you're UCF this year.
yeah, yeah, that's
It
true.
may that's to me, and I think Gus knows that's why Gus is all in on this year with the staff changes and the players he's added. Take advantage of the schedule, and
Yeah,
maybe you make a
schedule
trip to
the
Jerry's
schedule
World in
really did
December.
work because your road games are Fort Worth, Gainesville, Ames, Iowa. Ames, Iowa, very underrated destination, by the way. Tempe, and then West Virginia, and then Morgantown. So it's a very, aside from Arizona State, you're not going any further west than Dallas than the Metroplex.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It's there in the making to win 8 to 10 games. You can win 8 to 10 games.
You're right.
That's
You're right.
why the expectations will be through
And
the
then
roof.
roll the dice and see if see if the how the tiebreakers work out and all that, and then you can play in AT&T Stadium on Saturday, December 7th.
Yep. There you go.
All right.
Getting your flights ready, baby. By the way, those did, yes, I'm aware Georgia, Alabama is on September 28th. That's probably where game day will, in fact, game day will be there probably with the ABC
Oh, yeah.
Saturday night game. With
Is that game in
Alabama?
Or is
Alabama.
that Tuscaloosa?
Alabama.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's Georgia, Alabama. It's a big deal. So game day will be there. So there's no chance of game day here for Colorado. I think big noon kickoff is your best shot with,
Okay.
which I hate that show, but it is.
What do you have against that? Okay, listen. I got to give those guys credit because here's why. I know you'll disagree with me, but you know what? Sky's blue. College Game Day had the brand of like the college football pregame show sewn up, right? And to Fox's credit, they found a little niche for themselves and they pressed on that niche, right? So I don't mind, Now listen, I'll be 100% honest with you. I do not watch these pregame shows.
Yeah.
I don't feel that they're as informative as they used to be.
No, they're
It's
not.
just, it's
Mark Ingram jump into the crowd. Yeah,
it's very fluffy. It's very
Yeah.
very fluffy. I'm not like, getting as much info out of it as we used to. But I give Fox credit for carving out a little space for themselves. That's something that they have done well on that.
That's fine. Just feel free to spend 5 minutes talking about the Big 12. That's all. You don't have to go all Big 10 all the time. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I hear you.
Anyway,
what else we got on tap here? Softball.
we got
schedule.
ball in the diamond, baby. Yeah,
Yeah.
softball, baseball. Baseball was picked 10th in the baseball Big 12 preseason polls, strong league. Softball gets going
You
next
thought
week.
basketball and football were tough. Let me tell you about Big 12 baseball.
Strong. There should be a top 3 league.
And
probably
with
behind
Texas
the SEC.
still in the league, yeah.
Texas, the big brand in baseball. But it's great to see the tickets are going well for baseball. Softball starts next week, a week from to this Thursday. UCF opens with Howard at UConn at home.
Throwback, Eric.
Throwback, something like that. And then thanks to the Big 12, we did an In the Circle. In fact, on Thursday, the UCF Media Day podcast I created with that, an interview with Coach Ball Malone, nearly an hour talk with her, season preview, plus Shannon Doherty, Jada Cody. A lot of the Media Day UCF softball just had on Sunday. Me and Bryson talked to a lot of the players. That's going to be on the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel. We might do a special softball pod because there's a lot. Because, well, obviously I will not be available for the regular pod at this time next week because I'll be on the air. But it's going to be huge year. UCF softball, Big 12, man. It's the number 1 conference in softball as well. 4 teams in the top 20 in softball. So,
all right, let me ask you this because we're going to talk about softball first. Then we're going to go into baseball.
Sure.
But give me the sneaky good non-conference game that's going to be here in Orlando.
South Carolina
March.
South Carolina March 1st. Remember, South Carolina eliminated UCF in the Tallahassee Regional. Right. They added a pitcher, and Elena Votter's one of the best pitchers in the country. South Carolina's in the top 20. That's a marquee game. If you want to take out a date to a Valentine's night, go to softball. They host Liberty and Dot Richardson. They're very good too. They're going to win.
Oh,
CWAC.
that's right. Dot's the head coach at Liberty. I forgot
Correct.
about that.
Gold medalist. Oh yeah, Orlando
Yup.
native. So Liberty. Those are the two marquee, probably non-conference games. Even opening night, Connecticut's the defending Big East champions. But yeah, Liberty and South Carolina are probably the two marquee non-conference games. And then the Big 12 slate's got a ton of storylines. First Big 12 series is Kansas. What is it about?
Mhm.
It just because the Big 12 loves to pair UCF with schools from the state of Kansas for first sporting events in the Big 12. I don't know. BYU comes here, which has former Knight Matty Bejarano, who was one of the heroes from the 2022
right.
team, hit the walk-off against Michigan in that winner's bracket game in the regional. Texas top 5 team comes here. And, of course, the 3-time defending national champion Oklahoma Sooners will be here senior weekend in a series that I've heard is already sold out. Will be sold out, and it's going to be insane. Insane attendance this year for softball, and we'll see how they handle. We'll get into it more next week, but it's going to be interesting how they handle this challenging of a schedule. Talented group, though. 11 seniors, the largest in the program history. 8 pitchers on the staff.
That's got to be a record.
I'm pretty. It is a record. Rich Wallace probably wishes he had a couple of those arms on the baseball side. 7 freshmen, though, from the 16th highest signing class. So it's an interesting roster and how they blend in.
Hey, Coach Bear, that program just keeps chugging.
Yeah. 3 straight 40-win seasons. Yeah.
Love it. I mean, and by the way, shout out to the Knight fans out in the Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater area.
Yep.
Because if you come out to watch the Knights out there, Wisconsin, North Carolina on February 16th, number 25, Kentucky, number 24, Northwestern, number 8, UCLA. Eric, are you going out there for that one?
Yes, I will be going out there. By the way, a couple of notes there. The UCLA game, Sunday, February 18th, 6 o'clock. That'll be on ESPN Linear. It's the first UCF softball game, regular season game on linear ESPN, regular ESPN, not ESPN2, not ESPNU, ESPN. That's
not
a
the
prime
Ocho,
time.
not Plus.
Correct. Prime time Sunday night slot. So that might be the most watched regular season UCF softball game ever against UCLA. You mentioned on their schedule non-conference, UCF's the only school in the country that could say this. They play Big Ten champions Northwestern, Pac-12 champions UCLA, SEC champions Tennessee. That's in California.
Yeah, number 2.
And the Big 12 champ, and then the Big 12 champions Oklahoma.
We're gonna find out real quick how good this team is.
For sure.
Looking at this schedule, dude.
For sure.
Because you mentioned the Mary Nutter. They're going out there to California for that.
Yep.
Mississippi State, Oregon, Mizzou, Oregon State, number 2 Tennessee, and then they wrap it up with merely San Diego.
Like I've said, I think they're a better team than last year, but it may not show in the win-loss record.
Yeah. Well, that RPI is going to be fun.
Well, that's what they're shooting for. They're shooting to host. They're going for Oklahoma City. They're putting all their chips in there. This is because you're gonna have a young team next year. So you're going all in with this senior class, this historic senior class led by Jada Cody and Shannon Doherty. That's what this is about. And look, it paid for, people can criticize her if they say, well, she overscheduled. They said the same thing in 2022, and it paid off with a host.
Yep, that's true. That's right.
And then baseball, obviously, who's gonna pitch on this team? That's gonna be the big question. I'm sure we're gonna have some media availabilities coming up soon on the baseball side and hear from Rich Wallace. But that'll be the big question on the baseball side.
Yep. And when we do, we will have that for you as well. Their schedule was released back in November, by the way. And and we'll have a more full breakdown as the season approaches for UCF baseball. With softball coming up, I'm looking forward to seeing what you got coming up, Eric. As softball Woj is in full swing right now, I will say. Bryant is the opener for UCF baseball Friday, February 16th at 6 p.m. So 1 week after softball starts up, baseball starts up, and then they play Miami Wednesday, February 21st, midweek. So, all right, that puts us in a position where we can wrap this thing up. So it's good. It was good getting this one a little old school, right? You and me, Eric, just like the old days, huh?
That's right. Got to hit up all the topics, and we'll have more with now baseball, softball getting going, basketball midseason. There's always football transaction going on. So, it's about to get busy now.
All right, all right. A shout out to Nick Porcelli, Bryson Turner, and the student of the game, Kyle Nash, who couldn't join us today, but you can follow them. VSOTG for Kyle. It's Bryson Turner for Bryson, and Nick Porcelli 2 for Nick. You can follow Eric at Eric Lopez Elo. You can follow me at Jeff_Sharon. I'm actually at Jeff Sharon on Threads. That's where I spend most of my time. Follow us at Black and Gold Banneret, your home for UCF sports on SB Nation. We are on Facebook, X, Threads, Instagram, YouTube, you name it. If you don't subscribe to this podcast, you should. Subscribe using any of your preferred apps for subscribing to podcasts. If you do subscribe, tell a friend. We'd love to know. We'd love to hear from UCF fans. Actually, we've heard from all over the country and in some foreign countries even, keeping everybody posted, of course. So for Eric Lopez and all of us at Black and Gold Banneret and the Night Shift podcast, I'm Jeff Sharon saying thank you so much for listening. Enjoy the weekend, and I will see you for the Oklahoma game on Saturday. Enjoy, folks. Go Knights. Charge on.